My mother-in-law gifted me divorce papers at my own birthday party. She never expected my revenge at the luxury birthday party. My name is Zoe, and I am 32 years old. I used to believe in marriage. I used to believe that love could conquer anything, even the coldest heart. I trusted my husband. I trusted his family. And most foolishly, I trusted that his mother would eventually learn to love me. But on the night of my 32nd birthday, standing in the middle of a ballroom filled with Boston's elite, I received a gift that shattered every illusion I had ever held. A golden envelope. Inside it, divorce papers already signed by my husband. Gloria Wellington thought I would crumble. She thought I would cry, sign those papers, and disappear into the night like a shameful secret. But she was wrong. So very wrong. Before I begin this story, I would love to know where you are watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below. And if stories about standing up for yourself and finding your strength resonate with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Trust me, you will want to stay until the end of this one. Now let me take you back to where it all began, so you can understand why that moment at the party changed everything. I met Marcus Wellington on a Thursday evening in late October 4 years ago. The leaves in Boston had turned that perfect shade of amber and crimson, and I remember thinking how beautiful the city looked as I walked into a networking event downtown. At the time, I was working as an interior designer at a mid-sized firm, nothing fancy, just honest work that I loved. My father spent his whole life as an electrician, and my mother worked as a nurse until she retired. We were not wealthy, but we were happy. We were real. That evening, I was there to find new clients for my company. I had practiced my pitch in the mirror that morning, adjusted my blazer 3 times, and convinced myself that I belonged in that room full of well-dressed professionals. And then I saw him. Marcus was standing near the window, holding a glass of whiskey, laughing at something his colleague had said. He had dark hair, sharp features, and the kind of easy confidence that comes from never having to worry about money. When our eyes met across the room, something shifted in my chest. He approached me first, told me he liked my shoes, of all things. I laughed, and just like that, we started talking. He was a lawyer specializing in corporate mergers, the son of a prominent family in Beacon Hill. Everything about him screamed old money and privilege. But when he looked at me, he made me feel like the most interesting person in the world. He asked for my number before the evening ended, and he called me the very next morning. The first 6 months of our relationship felt like something out of a dream. Marcus sent me flowers every week without fail. Pink peonies because I mentioned once that I loved them. He took me on weekend trips to little bed and breakfasts in Vermont, where we would drink wine by the fireplace and talk about our future. He spoke constantly about the life we would build together, the house we would buy, the children we would have, the adventures we would take. I fell for him completely. I remember the night he proposed. We had driven to Cape Cod on a whim, just the 2 of us escaping the city for a few days. The sun was setting over the ocean, painting everything in shades of gold and rose. We were walking along the beach, my sandals in my hand, the cool water lapping at my feet. And then Marcus stopped. He turned to me with this look in his eyes, something so sincere and vulnerable that my breath caught in my throat. He got down on one knee, pulled out a ring that sparkled even in the fading light, and asked me to be his wife. I said yes before he even finished the question. In that moment, I believed I had found my happily ever after. Meeting his mother for the first time should have been a warning sign, but I was too blinded by love to see it clearly. Marcus arranged a dinner at the Wellington family home, a 3-story Victorian mansion in Beacon Hill that looked like it belonged in a magazine. As we pulled into the circular driveway, I felt my palms grow sweaty. I had dressed carefully that evening, a navy blue dress that I hoped looked sophisticated, but not like I was trying too hard. I wanted to make a good impression. I wanted her to like me. Gloria Wellington opened the door herself, which surprised me. I had expected a housekeeper, maybe a butler. But there she was, a woman in her early 60s with perfectly styled silver blonde hair and diamonds glittering at her ears and throat. She wore a cream-colored cashmere sweater and tailored pants, looking effortlessly elegant in a way I knew I could never replicate. Her smile was polished, practiced, and it did not quite reach her eyes. "Welcome," she said, looking me up and down so quickly I almost missed it. "You must be Zoe. Marcus has told me so much about you." The inside of the house was even more impressive than the exterior. Antique furniture, oil paintings in gilded frames, Persian rugs that probably cost more than my annual salary. Marcus's father, Richard, had passed away 5 years earlier, leaving Gloria as the sole guardian of the Wellington fortune and legacy. She took that responsibility very seriously. Dinner was formal in a way I had never experienced. Multiple courses served on china so delicate I was afraid to touch it. Gloria asked me questions throughout the meal, her tone pleasant but her eyes calculating. Where did I grow up? What did my parents do? Where had I gone to school? When I told her my father was an electrician, I saw her eyebrow raise just slightly, a movement so subtle that anyone else might have missed it. But I did not miss it. I felt it in my bones. Marcus kept squeezing my hand under the table, reassuring me. And I kept telling myself that it would be fine, that Gloria just needed time to get to know me, that once she saw how much I loved her son, she would accept me into the family. Our wedding took place almost exactly a year after that first meeting. Gloria insisted on planning everything, and Marcus convinced me it was a generous gesture. She has the experience, he said. She knows how to throw an event. Just let her help. So I did. I let her choose the venue, a country club so exclusive I had never even heard of it before. I let her select the flowers, white roses, instead of the wildflower arrangements I had imagined. I let her decide on the guest list, the menu, even the music. By the time our wedding day arrived, I barely recognized any of it as mine. But I told myself it did not matter. What mattered was that I was marrying the man I loved. What mattered was our future together. On the morning of the wedding, Gloria came to see me in the bridal suite. I was standing in front of the mirror, my hair styled in soft waves, the white gown I had chosen clinging to my body in a way that made me feel beautiful. She stood in the doorway for a moment watching me before she walked over and placed her hand on my shoulder. "Welcome to the family," she said. "I hope you understand what it means to be a Wellington." I knew it was not entirely a warm sentiment. There was a warning woven into those words, a reminder that I was entering a world with rules I did not fully understand. But I smiled and thanked her. I chose to see the best in the moment. I chose hope. Looking back now, I realize that hope can sometimes be the cruelest thing we choose. The first sign that something was wrong came 3 months after the wedding. Marcus and I had moved into a penthouse apartment that Gloria had purchased for us as a wedding gift. It was stunning with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Charles River marble countertops and more square footage than I knew what to do with. At first I was grateful. It seemed like such a generous gesture. But then I noticed that Gloria had a key. She would show up unannounced at random times. I would come home from work to find her rearranging the living room furniture or replacing the curtains I had chosen with ones she deemed more appropriate. Once I walked in to discover she had hired a cleaning service without telling me strangers going through my belongings because she did not trust me to keep the apartment up to her standards. When I mentioned it to Marcus gently, carefully, not wanting to seem ungrateful, he brushed it off. "She means well, Zoe. She just wants us to be comfortable. Let her help." I started to feel like a guest in my own home, like I was occupying space that did not truly belong to me, but I kept quiet. I kept trying to make it work. The comparisons started subtly, so subtly that I almost did not notice them at first. Gloria had a friend named Caroline, and Caroline had a daughter named Priscilla. Priscilla was everything I was not. She was a surgeon at Massachusetts General Hospital. She came from a family with a summer home in the Hamptons and a ski chalet in Aspen. She had perfect blonde hair and perfect teeth and a perfect pedigree that stretched back to the Mayflower. And according to Gloria, Priscilla was the woman Marcus should have married. I first heard her name at a family dinner a few months after the wedding. We were sitting around Gloria's massive dining table, just the three of us eating a roast that had been prepared by her private chef. Gloria was talking about Caroline's recent trip to Paris when she casually mentioned that Priscilla had just purchased a vacation home. Priscilla is doing so well for herself. Gloria said, not looking at me. She just made partner at her practice, and she has been doing the most wonderful charity work at the Children's Hospital. She really is remarkable. I did not know how to respond, so I just nodded and kept eating. But over the following weeks and months, Priscilla's name kept coming up. At every family gathering, every phone call, every brunch that Gloria insisted I attend, it was always the same. Priscilla this, Priscilla that. Priscilla would never wear something so casual. Priscilla knows how to entertain properly. Priscilla understands what is expected. I was being measured against this woman I had never even met, and I was always found lacking. The worst moment came at one of Gloria's social gatherings, a charity luncheon at the country club. I was standing with a group of her friends trying to make polite conversation when Gloria arrived at my side with that trademark smile of hers. Marcus could have had anyone you know, she said to the group loud enough for everyone to hear, but he chose love over practicality. She gave a little laugh as if she had made a harmless joke. Her friends laughed too, and I stood there, my cheeks burning, trying to keep the smile on my face while my heart cracked a little more. As the months passed, I became increasingly isolated. Gloria hosted weekly family dinners, monthly charity events, constant social obligations that I was expected to attend. But at every single one, I felt more and more like an outsider. Her friends treated me like I was invisible, or worse, like I was the help. They would ask me to fetch them drinks. They would talk over me when I tried to join their conversations. They would exchange knowing looks when I made some small mistake, some tiny breach of social protocol that I did not even know existed. My own friends started to drift away. I was always too busy with Wellington obligations to meet them for coffee or drinks. I missed birthdays and celebrations because Gloria had scheduled something more important. Eventually, they stopped calling. I cannot blame them. I had become a ghost of the person I used to be. And Marcus was changing too. He worked later and later hours. He traveled more frequently for business. When he was home, he seemed distracted, distant, always on his phone. I would try to talk to him to tell him how I was feeling, but he would wave away my concerns. "You are being too sensitive, Zoe. My mother loves you. She just shows it differently." One night, about 2 years into our marriage, I woke up around 2 a.m. to find Marcus still awake, the blue light of his phone illuminating his face in the darkness. When I asked who he was texting, he jumped like I had caught him doing something wrong. "Just work stuff," he said quickly, locking the phone and putting it face down on the nightstand. "Go back to sleep." But I could not sleep. Something in his tone, something in the way he would not meet my eyes, planted a seed of doubt in my heart that I could not shake. I tried to ignore it. I tried to trust him. But the seed had been planted, and slowly, inevitably, it began to grow. I found out the truth on a Tuesday afternoon in early September, exactly 2 years and 7 months after our wedding day. I had left work early because I was feeling sick, a headache that had been building all morning until I could barely focus on my computer screen. When I pulled into our building's parking garage, I noticed Marcus's car already there. Strange, I thought. He was supposed to be in New York for a deposition. He had kissed me goodbye that morning, told me he would be back Thursday night. The elevator ride up to our floor felt longer than usual. When I stepped into the apartment, everything was quiet. Too quiet. And then I heard it. Laughter. Coming from the bedroom, my heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe he had come home early to surprise me. Maybe he was on a video call with a colleague. Maybe. I walked down the hallway, my footsteps silent on the thick carpet. The bedroom door was slightly open. I pushed it the rest of the way, and there they were. Marcus was in our bed with a woman I had never seen before in person, but whose face I knew from photographs. Blonde hair spread across my pillow, long legs tangled in my sheets. She was beautiful in that polished, perfect way that I could never compete with. And in that moment, looking at the two of them, I understood everything that Gloria had been trying to tell me all along. It was Priscilla. The next few seconds happened in a blur that I can still see clearly when I close my eyes. Marcus scrambling to sit up, his face going white. Priscilla looking at me with an expression that was not shame or embarrassment, but something closer to satisfaction, like she had won a prize she had been waiting for. Zoe Marcus started, but I was already running. I made it to the lobby bathroom before I threw up my body, rejecting everything at once. The shock, the betrayal, the shattered remains of the life I thought I had built. When I came out, Marcus was there, waiting by the elevators, his shirt buttoned wrong and his hair still disheveled. "It is not what it looks like," he said, "which is what they always say, is it not? It was a mistake. It did not mean anything. I love you. I will end it. Right now, I swear." I did not say a single word. I walked past him, got in my car, and drove to a hotel downtown. I checked in, went up to my room, and sat on the edge of the bed for hours, staring at the wall, trying to process what had just happened to my life. I stayed in that hotel for 3 days. I did not answer Marcus's calls or texts. I did not answer my mother's worried voicemails or my friends' concerned messages. I just existed in that room, ordering room service I could not eat and watching television I could not focus on. On the 3rd day, my phone rang with a number I recognized, Gloria. Against my better judgment, I answered. "We need to talk," she said. "Come to the house." I drove to Beacon Hill in a daze. Gloria was waiting for me in the formal living room, seated in a high-backed chair like a queen on her throne. She did not stand when I entered. She did not offer me tea or sympathy. She just looked at me with those cold blue eyes and said words that I will never forget. "I know what you saw, but let me be clear, Zoe. You have no right to blame Marcus for this." I stared at her, not understanding. No right your son was in bed with another woman, in our home, in our marriage. Gloria waved her hand dismissively as if I had complained about a minor inconvenience. Marcus has needs that perhaps you are not equipped to meet. Priscilla understands him in ways you never could. My blood ran cold. You knew about them. Of course I knew. Gloria smiled, then a small, satisfied smile that made me want to scream. I introduced them, actually. Priscilla has been a family friend for years. She was always the better choice for Marcus. I simply reminded him of that. I felt like the floor was tilting beneath my feet. You encouraged him to cheat on me. Your own daughter-in-law. Gloria stood up, then smoothing her skirt with manicured hands. "You were never truly my daughter-in-law, Zoe. You were a mistake Marcus made in a moment of foolishness, a mistake that I have spent 3 years trying to correct." She stepped closer to me, close enough that I could smell her expensive perfume. "The best thing you can do now is accept the situation and behave like a proper wife. Look the other way. Keep up appearances. That is how these things are done in families like ours." I could not breathe. My chest felt like it was being crushed. "Families like yours?" I repeated slowly. Gloria nodded. "Families with something to lose. You should be grateful Marcus married you at all. Most men in his position would not have given someone like you a second glance." I left without another word. I drove back to my hotel room and cried until I had nothing left. And then somewhere in the middle of that dark night, something inside me shifted. I was angry, not the hot, explosive anger that burns out quickly. This was something colder, something patient, something that whispered to me that Gloria Wellington had underestimated me for the last time. Marcus found me 2 days later. He showed up at my hotel room looking like he had not slept in days and got down on his knees in front of me. "Please, Zoe, please come home. I will end things with Priscilla. I will do whatever you want. I love you. Only you." I looked at this man I had married, this man I had built my life around, and I felt something inside me crack. But I was not strong enough to walk away. Not yet. I still loved him, or love the memory of who I thought he was, which is almost the same thing when you are lost in pain. I went home. Marcus kept his promises at first. He came home from work on time. He stopped traveling so much. He was attentive and kind the way he had been when we first started dating. For 1 month, almost 2, I let myself believe that we could recover. But Gloria had other plans. The family dinners resumed, and somehow Priscilla was always there. Just a friend of the family, Gloria would say with that innocent smile. It would be rude to exclude her. I watched Marcus across the table, watched the way his eyes lingered on Priscilla, watched the secret smiles they exchanged when they thought I was not looking. One evening, I checked his phone while he was in the shower. I know I should not have, but I could not help myself. And there they were. Hundreds of messages, terms of endearment, plans to meet, promises that they would be together soon once Marcus figured out how to handle the situation. The situation, that was me. I was the situation that needed to be handled. I stopped sleeping. I lost 15 pounds without trying. My work suffered. My mother kept asking what was wrong, and I kept lying, telling her I was fine, just tired, just busy. I was drowning, and I did not know how to save myself. And then 2 weeks before my 32nd birthday, I discovered Gloria's final plan. I had arrived early for one of her insufferable dinner parties and was looking for a bathroom when I passed her study. The door was slightly open, and I heard her voice inside, along with a man's voice I did not recognize. "I want the divorce papers ready before her birthday," Gloria was saying. "She needs to be out of the picture before the Wellington Foundation Gala in November. I will not have that woman embarrassing us in front of the board." The man, who I later realized was her lawyer, murmured something in response. "The prenuptial agreement is ironclad," Gloria continued. She signed it without even reading it properly. The foolish girl was so in love she would have signed anything. She gets nothing, not a penny. She walks away with exactly what she came in with, which is nothing. I stood frozen in that hallway, my heart pounding so hard I was sure they could hear it. Everything made sense now. Gloria had never intended to accept me. She had simply been waiting for the right moment to get rid of me. And that moment was coming. But as I stood there listening to Gloria plan my destruction, I realized something else. She had underestimated me. She thought I was weak. She thought I would crumble. She thought I had nothing to fight back with. She was wrong about all of it. The invitation came 2 weeks before my birthday. Gloria called personally to announce that she wanted to throw me a party, a celebration, she said, for my 32nd year, something special, something memorable. I should have been suspicious. In 3 years of marriage, Gloria had never done anything kind for me without an ulterior motive. But I was curious. I wanted to see what she was planning, and somewhere deep inside, I was ready. The weeks leading up to my birthday were a whirlwind of preparation. Gloria hired a party planner, reserved a ballroom at one of Boston's most prestigious hotels, and sent out invitations to over 100 guests. All of Boston's high society would be there. Business leaders, politicians, philanthropists, everyone who mattered in the Wellington world. Gloria even helped me choose my dress. We spent an afternoon at a boutique on Newbury Street, where she selected a stunning emerald green gown that cost more than I had ever spent on clothing in my entire life. She seemed so genuinely invested in making me look beautiful that for a moment, just a moment, I wondered if I had misjudged her. But I had not misjudged her. I knew exactly what she was planning, and I was planning something of my own. In the weeks before the party, I had hired my own lawyer, a woman named Sandra, who came highly recommended by a friend of a friend, someone completely outside of Gloria's social circle. I told Sandra everything: the affair, Gloria's involvement, the prenuptial agreement I had signed without proper legal counsel, the overheard conversation about the divorce papers. Sandra listened to my entire story with a poker face that must have taken years to perfect. Then she smiled. The prenup, she said, has an infidelity clause. Standard language, actually. If either party engages in an extramarital affair during the marriage, the agreement becomes void. I stared at her. What does that mean? It means, Sandra said, leaning forward, that if you can prove Marcus cheated on you, you are entitled to equitable distribution of marital assets under Massachusetts law. The prenup does not protect him or his family anymore. My heart started racing. I have proof, text messages, photographs. I even have a statement from a hotel employee who saw them together. Sandra nodded approvingly. Then Gloria Wellington is not nearly as smart as she thinks she is. We can file a counterpetition for divorce before she even knows what hit her. That afternoon, Sandra and I created a plan. We gathered every piece of evidence I had collected over the past months. We drafted documents. We prepared for battle. And the morning of my birthday party, just hours before I was scheduled to walk into that ballroom, Sandra filed the papers with the court. The evening arrived faster than I expected. I spent hours getting ready, wanting to look perfect for what I knew would be the most important night of my life. The emerald dress fit like it had been made for me. My hair fell in soft waves around my shoulders. My makeup was flawless. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. I looked like a woman who was about to burn down the world. Marcus picked me up at 7. He complimented my appearance, told me I looked beautiful, behaved like the perfect husband. I played my part too, smiling and thanking him, holding his hand as we walked into the hotel. If he noticed anything different about me, he did not mention it. The ballroom was spectacular. White roses everywhere, just like at our wedding. Crystal chandeliers casting soft light over tables dressed in ivory linens. A live band playing sophisticated jazz in the corner. Over 100 guests mingling with champagne flutes in hand, dressed in their finest, ready to celebrate the woman they had spent 3 years ignoring and dismissing. Gloria greeted me at the entrance, kissing my cheek like a loving mother. "You look stunning," she said. "Tonight is going to be unforgettable." For once we agreed on something. The evening progressed exactly as Gloria had choreographed it. Appetizers were served. Toasts were made. I smiled and mingled and accepted birthday wishes from people whose names I could barely remember. And through it all, I felt strangely calm, like I was watching myself from a distance, waiting for the moment I knew was coming. It happened after dinner. Gloria took the microphone from the band leader and asked everyone for their attention. The room fell silent as she gestured for me to join her on the small stage at the front of the ballroom. "I would like to present my daughter-in-law with a very special birthday gift," Gloria announced, her voice warm and magnanimous. "Something that I think will change her life forever." She handed me a golden envelope, thick and heavy in my hands. I could feel all those eyes on me, watching, waiting. I knew what was inside before I even opened it. The divorce papers were printed on expensive cream-colored paper. Marcus's signature was already there, neat and precise at the bottom of the last page. Everything was in order. All it needed was my signature. I looked up at Gloria, who was watching me with barely concealed triumph. She thought this was her moment of victory. She thought I would crumble right there on that stage, in front of everyone who mattered, crying and defeated. "This is a special gift," she said, leaning close to me and speaking just loud enough for the front rows to hear. "It is time for you to leave the Wellington family with dignity. Sign it now, and we can make this easy for everyone." The room was completely silent. I could feel the weight of 100 stares, could hear the soft rustle of expensive fabrics as guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Somewhere near the back, I spotted Priscilla standing in a pale pink dress, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips, and something inside me snapped. But it was not the breaking kind of snap. It was the opposite. It was the sound of something clicking into place. I took a deep breath. I set the divorce papers down on the nearest table, and then I reached over and took the microphone from the stand where Gloria had left it. "Thank you so much, Gloria," I said, my voice steady and clear. "This really is an unforgettable birthday gift. But before I sign anything, I think all of these wonderful guests deserve to know the full story." Gloria's face went pale. She reached for the microphone, but I stepped back out of her reach. For 3 years, I continued looking out at the crowd. I have been told that I am not good enough, not rich enough, not polished enough, not worthy of being a Wellington. I told them about the constant comparisons to Priscilla, about being excluded from decisions about my own home, my own wedding, my own life, about Gloria's campaign to make me feel small and insignificant at every possible opportunity. And then I said, lowering my voice slightly, I discovered something else. I discovered that my husband has been having an affair. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I saw people exchange shocked glances. Marcus stood frozen near the bar, his face the color of ash. An affair, I continued, with a woman named Priscilla. Some of you may know her. She is here tonight, actually. I turned and looked directly at Priscilla, who suddenly seemed much less confident than she had a moment ago. An affair that my mother-in-law did not just know about, but actively encouraged. That is enough, Gloria hissed, stepping toward me. You are making a fool of yourself. But I was not finished. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the ballroom speaker system. The technology had been set up for the party's slideshow, but I had a different kind of presentation in mind. Gloria's voice filled the room crisp and clear. I want her out before the Wellington Foundation Gala. She is an embarrassment to our family. The recording continued, playing the entire conversation I had overheard between Gloria and her lawyer. Every cruel word, every dismissive comment, every detail of her plan to humiliate me and cast me out without a penny. When the recording ended, the silence in the ballroom was absolute. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Gloria stood frozen, her perfectly composed facade cracked wide open. And I was not finished yet. The aftermath of that recording was immediate and devastating for Gloria in a way I had not fully anticipated. I had expected shock. I had expected whispers. But what I witnessed was something closer to a social execution. Helen Crawford was the first to stand. She was the chairwoman of the Boston Children's Foundation and one of the most respected philanthropists in the city. Gloria had cultivated her friendship for decades. They served on boards together. They vacationed in the same circles. Helen's approval had been essential to Gloria's standing in society for as long as anyone could remember. Gloria Helen said, her voice cutting through the silence. Like a knife, I have known you for 30 years. I have defended you to people who said you were cold. I have overlooked behavior that I should have addressed. But this... She shook her head slowly. This is beyond anything I could have imagined. Gloria opened her mouth to respond, but Helen held up her hand. I do not want to hear your excuses. Not tonight. Not ever. She turned to me, her expression softening. Young lady, you showed more courage in the last 5 minutes than most people show in a lifetime. If there is anything I can do to help you, please do not hesitate to call me. Other guests began to murmur, and the murmurs were not kind to Gloria. I could see her looking around the room, searching for allies and finding none. Even her closest friends seemed to be avoiding her gaze. But I had more to say. I still had the microphone, and I was not ready to let it go. That prenuptial agreement Gloria mentioned, I said the one that was supposed to leave me with nothing. Well, it turns out that agreements like that have clauses. Important clauses. I looked directly at Marcus, who had not moved from his spot by the bar. He looked like a man watching his house burn down, unable to do anything but stand there and let it happen. One of those clauses, I continued, states that if either party engages in infidelity during the marriage, the entire agreement is voided. And thanks to my husband's carelessness and my mother-in-law's arrogance, I have more than enough evidence to prove that infidelity occurred. I reached into my clutch and pulled out another envelope, this one white and official looking. This morning I said my lawyer filed a counter-petition for divorce in Middlesex County Court, along with documentation of the affair, along with a lawsuit against Gloria Wellington for intentional infliction of emotional distress and defamation. I walked toward Gloria and held out the envelope. This is my birthday gift to you. Gloria did not take it. She just stared at me, her face a mask of fury and disbelief. Finally, she found her voice. You will not get a single penny from this family. I will make sure of it. My lawyers will destroy you." I smiled. It was not a warm smile. Actually, Gloria, according to Massachusetts law, I am entitled to an equitable share of all assets acquired during our marriage. And given that Marcus has been working at a firm that does business with Wellington Family Holdings for the past 3 years, those assets are considerable. But I did not come here to talk about money. I came here to tell the truth. For the first time in 3 years, I am finally telling the truth. I set the envelope down on the table next to the divorce papers Gloria had tried to force on me. I turned to walk away. That was when Marcus finally moved. He stepped forward, reaching for my arm. "Zoe, please. Can we just talk about this privately?" I stopped and looked at him. Really looked at him. This man I had loved so desperately. This man I had given up so much for. This man who had signed divorce papers without even having a conversation with me first. "Marcus," I said quietly, "for 3 years I waited for you to choose me. I waited for you to stand up to your mother. I waited for you to be the man you promised to be on that beach in Cape Cod. But you never did. You signed those papers before you even talked to me. You chose your mother and Priscilla over your wife. So now I am choosing myself. For the first time in our entire relationship, I am putting myself first." He had nothing to say to that. What could he say? The truth was written all over his face. I turned back to the crowd one final time. I apologize for disrupting this beautiful party, but I refuse to be silenced anymore. I refuse to be erased. Then I set down the microphone and walked toward the exit. The walk across that ballroom felt like it took hours and seconds at the same time. I passed tables full of shocked faces, some sympathetic, some merely curious, some openly hostile. I heard Gloria shouting something behind me, her voice raw with rage, but I did not turn around. Helen Crawford intercepted me near the doors. She pressed something into my hand, a business card, and squeezed my fingers tight. "Call me tomorrow," she said. "You are going to be just fine, sweetheart." Better than fine. Gloria's voice rose above the chaos behind me. "You will regret this. No one crosses the Wellingtons and walks away unscathed." I paused at the doorway and looked back over my shoulder. "I already have my regrets, Gloria. 3 years of them. But tonight I have none." Then I walked out into the cool Boston night, the city lights glittering around me, and took the deepest breath I had taken in 3 years. The scandal spread through Boston society faster than wildfire. By the next morning, everyone who mattered knew what had happened at my birthday party. Someone had filmed the entire confrontation on their phone and shared it with friends who shared it with more friends. And within 24 hours, Gloria Wellington's carefully constructed reputation lay in ruins. The consequences came swiftly. The Wellington Foundation lost 3 of its largest donors within the first week, including Helen Crawford's Family Foundation and 2 corporate sponsors who did not want their names associated with the scandal. The board of directors called an emergency meeting and quietly asked Gloria to step down from her leadership position. She refused, but the damage was done. Her influence had evaporated overnight. Marcus's situation was equally dire. His law firm placed him on administrative leave pending an internal review. Partners who had once praised his work suddenly remembered concerns they had always had about his character. Within a month, he resigned rather than face the humiliation of being fired. Priscilla disappeared from the picture entirely. She released a carefully worded statement through her publicist denying any romantic involvement with Marcus and expressing sympathy for all parties involved. She took a sudden leave of absence from the hospital and reportedly traveled to Europe to escape the media attention. I never saw her again. The divorce proceedings took 6 months. Gloria hired the best lawyers money could buy, but Sandra was better. Every piece of evidence I had gathered was admissible. The hotel employee who had seen Marcus and Priscilla together provided a sworn statement. The text messages and photographs were authenticated. And the prenuptial agreement was, as Sandra had predicted, completely voided by Marcus's infidelity. In the end, I received a settlement that allowed me to start fresh. It was not an obscene amount. I did not ask for everything I was entitled to. I did not want their money as much as I wanted my freedom. I wanted enough to build a new life, and that is exactly what I got. The lawsuit against Gloria settled out of court. Her lawyers approached Sandra with an offer a generous sum in exchange for my agreement not to discuss the matter publicly. I accepted not because I wanted her money, but because I was tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of being angry. Tired of having my life defined by the Wellingtons. On the day I signed the final divorce papers, I sat in Sandra's office with a pen in my hand and felt absolutely nothing. No sadness, no regret, no relief, just a calm sense of completion, like closing a book I had been reading for too long. Marcus tried to contact me once after everything was finalized. He sent a letter to my new address handwritten several pages long. He apologized for everything. He said he had been weak. He said his mother had manipulated him. He said he still loved me and always would. I read the letter once, then put it through the shredder without responding. Some bridges do not just burn. They need to be demolished completely so you can never be tempted to cross them again. As for Gloria, I heard through mutual acquaintances that she had become increasingly isolated. The friends who had once clamored for her attention now found excuses to avoid her calls. The social invitations stopped coming. She still lived in that enormous mansion in Beacon Hill, but it was empty now. Just her and the ghosts of all the bridges she had burned. I wish I could say I felt satisfied knowing about her downfall, but the truth is, I did not feel much of anything about Gloria anymore. She had tried to destroy me and she had failed. That was enough. What surprised me most in the aftermath was the outpouring of support from unexpected places. Helen Crawford made good on her promise and connected me with several potential clients for my interior design business. Other women who had been at the party reached out to share their own stories of mistreatment by the Wellington family or similar situations they had endured in their own lives. I realized that by standing up for myself, I had somehow given others permission to acknowledge their own experiences. I was not alone. I had never been alone. I had just been too lost in my own pain to see it. The first few months after the divorce were harder than I expected. Even though I had won, even though I had walked away with my dignity intact, I still woke up in the middle of the night, sometimes reaching for a body that was no longer beside me. I still caught myself picking up the phone to call Marcus and share something funny that had happened before remembering that he was not mine to call anymore. Healing is not linear. It is not a straight path from pain to peace. It is a winding road with unexpected turns and sudden drops and moments when you think you have made no progress at all. But slowly, day by day, I started to find my way. I began seeing a therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Patterson, who helped me understand that what I had experienced was not just a failed marriage, but a form of emotional abuse. Gloria's systematic campaign to isolate me, demean me, and make me feel worthless was textbook manipulation. Marcus's gaslighting, his dismissal of my concerns, his betrayal. Those were not character flaws I should have tried harder to overlook. They were red flags that I deserved better. I reconnected with the friends I had lost during my marriage. Sarah and Megan, my college roommates who had tried so hard to stay close, even as I pushed them away. They did not judge me or say I told you so. They just welcomed me back into their lives like I had never left. We started having weekly dinner dates at a little Italian restaurant near my new apartment, drinking too much wine and laughing about nothing and everything. I called my mother more often. She had known something was wrong during my marriage, but had been too respectful of my boundaries to push. Now I told her everything, and she listened without judgment. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I am so proud of you, sweetheart. Not because you won, because you did not let them break you." That sentence stayed with me for weeks. Because you did not let them break you. I realized that surviving was its own kind of victory. The Wellingtons had tried to crush my spirit, and they had failed. I threw myself into my work with a passion I had not felt in years. Without the constant drain of Wellington social obligations, I had energy again. I had creativity again. I designed spaces that felt like me, warm and welcoming and full of light. My portfolio grew. My reputation spread. Within a year of my divorce, I had enough clients to leave my job at the firm and start my own business. The day I signed the lease on my studio space, I stood in the empty room and cried. Not sad tears, happy tears, proud tears, tears for the woman I used to be and the woman I was becoming. I moved into a small apartment in the South End, far from Beacon Hill and its painful memories. It was nothing like the penthouse I had shared with Marcus. It was cozy and modest and entirely mine. I decorated every inch of it exactly how I wanted, with no one telling me I was doing it wrong. I painted the walls soft yellow. I hung photographs of my family and friends. I bought mismatched furniture that I loved for no particular reason other than it made me smile. For the first time in years, I felt at home. Dating again was terrifying. I went on a few first dates that went nowhere, struggling to trust my own judgment after everything I had been through. But slowly, I started to relax. I learned to recognize the warning signs I had missed with Marcus. I learned to ask questions I had been too naive to ask before. And most importantly, I learned that being alone was not the worst thing that could happen. Being with the wrong person was far worse. I did not rush into anything. I did not need to. I had finally learned to be comfortable in my own company. 1 year after my birthday party, almost to the day, I received an invitation that made me laugh out loud. It was from the Boston Children's Foundation requesting my presence at their annual gala. Helen Crawford had made sure my name was on the list. I went to the gala in a stunning red dress, walking into that ballroom with my head held high. I was not a Wellington anymore. I was just Zoe, and that was more than enough. Standing here now, looking back at everything I have been through, I can finally see the journey for what it was. Not a tragedy, not a failure, but a transformation. Sometimes the people who should love you the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. That is not a reflection of your worth. That is a reflection of theirs. Gloria Wellington saw me as a threat because I represented everything she could not control. Marcus betrayed me because he was too weak to become his own person. Priscilla used me as a stepping stone because she could not find her own path to happiness. None of that was about me. It was always about them. What I have learned is that you cannot make someone love you by being smaller. You cannot earn respect by accepting disrespect. And you cannot find peace by letting others steal your voice. The revenge I took at that party was not really about revenge at all. It was about truth. It was about refusing to be silenced. It was about standing in the middle of a room full of people who had dismissed me for years and saying, I see you. I see what you did, and I will not pretend anymore. That is the most powerful thing you can do when someone tries to break you. You can refuse to break. I still think about that woman who walked into the networking event 4 years ago, so hopeful and naive, believing that love would conquer all. I do not judge her for what she did not know. I do not blame her for the choices she made. I simply thank her for surviving long enough for me to be here now. If you are watching this and you see yourself in my story, please hear me. You deserve to be loved for exactly who you are. You deserve respect, kindness, and partnership. You deserve a seat at the table, not crumbs from someone else's plate. And if someone is making you feel small, if someone is treating you like you do not matter, ask yourself this: are you staying because you love them, or are you staying because you have forgotten how to love yourself? The answer to that question might just change your life. I would love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself in a difficult situation? Have you ever walked away from something that was hurting you even when it seemed impossible? Share your story. You never know who might need to hear it. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it today. Your support means the world to me, and it helps these stories reach more people who might be going through something similar. Thank you so much for watching and for listening to my story. Whatever you are facing right now, whatever battle you are fighting, please remember this. You are stronger than you think. You are worthy of love. And your story is not over yet. Until next time, take care of yourselves. And always, always choose yourself.